Have you ever felt like someone who claims to love you is playing with your mind as if you were just a piece on their board? That feeling of doubt, of not knowing if what you remember is real, of sensing that your happiness depends on the whims of the other person. That's the most common trap in a relationship with a narcissist. At first, everything seems like a fairy tale, but little by little you discover that what looked like love was actually a carefully staged setup to trap you. And the worst part is that the more you try to justify it, the farther you drift from yourself, from your peace, from your truth. My name is Gabriel. I've been studying and practicing Stoicism as a philosophy of life for more than 15 years, and I've guided hundreds of people around the world who are looking for a way out of relationships that drained their energy and stripped away their dignity. I've seen how someone can go from living in an invisible prison built from sweet words and silent punishments to reclaiming their strength, courage, and above all, the freedom to choose. The pain these relationships leave behind is real, but so is the possibility of healing, of inhabiting your life again with dignity, without feeling like you're living in someone else's shadow. In this talk, I'm going to share with you 9 clear, precise, and sometimes uncomfortable signs that reveal when your partner isn't who they pretend to be, but a manipulator who needs your confusion to feel powerful. We're going to strip away those masks with practical philosophy, deep reflections, and real-life examples that will help you open your eyes and, most importantly, never close them again. Let's begin. Number 1. Intermittent affection. I want to start with what looks like love, but is really a hook disguised as tenderness. Intermittent reinforcement. You've probably lived it, or at least heard of it. One day your partner showers you with attention, flowers, messages, and promises, and the next, they vanish emotionally, turning cold, distant, or even indifferent. That roller coaster is no accident, it's a strategy. The problem is that your heart doesn't understand behavioral psychology. It just feels the rush and then the emptiness. And before you know it, you start begging for crumbs of affection as if they were a feast. Have you ever caught yourself celebrating the fact that there wasn't an argument today? As if peace were a prize and not the most natural thing in a healthy relationship. On a brain level, this pattern works exactly like slot machines in a casino. You never know when the next reward will come, and that uncertainty is what keeps you hooked. I've seen people stay for years in relationships they knew were harmful, justifying everything with the phrase, "But he also has a good side." And of course he does. Otherwise, no one would stay. But that good side is the bait. I remember a 70-year-old woman I worked with who told me, "Gabriel, I stayed for 40 years because once in a while he brought me a serenade." She called it destiny, but in reality, it was conditioning. Here's where Stoicism offers something essential: learning to distinguish between what gives us pleasure and what truly does us good. Because not everything that makes us smile in the moment builds our life. Epictetus spoke about this difference when he taught that what matters isn't what we feel in the moment, but what we choose to cultivate as a lasting virtue. Intermittent affection doesn't cultivate virtue, it cultivates addiction. I remember the first time I discovered this mechanism was through something very simple. Someone close to me who only called when they needed favors. When I said yes, I got compliments. But if I ever said no, I was met with silence and disdain. At first, I thought it was just a character issue, until I started to notice the pattern. That's when I realized it wasn't random. It was a cycle of reward and punishment designed to condition my response. And when I stepped back, I felt for the first time what it meant to recover my calm. If you want to try a small exercise, I suggest you take a sheet of paper and for 1 month, write down every gesture of affection you receive and every moment of distance. At the end, look for rhythm, for a repeated pattern. Once you see it in black and white, it's much harder to justify it with phrases like, "He's just tired," or "I'm overreacting." Sometimes paper becomes a mirror, and in that mirror you discover whether you're receiving love or carefully measured doses of affection. So next time you're dazzled by a romantic gesture after a storm of contempt, ask yourself, is this love or is it a slot machine payout? The difference is vital, because while real love builds stability, intermittent affection destroys your peace and binds you with invisible chains. Here's the closing reflection for this chapter. Don't confuse emotion with love. Love is sustained by consistency, not by a light show that flashes on and off. True love doesn't make you doubt. It doesn't make you wait to see if today you'll get a reward. True love simply is. Number 2, he isolates you from your people. There's a silent strategy narcissists use with surgical precision, cutting the bridges that connect you to the people who love you most. They don't do it all at once, of course not. They start with subtle comments. I don't like your friend. Your family has never accepted me. I don't get why you talk to your kids so much. Little by little, what seemed like a simple opinion turns into an invisible wall separating you from your own. First comes the discrediting, that your sister is jealous. Your friend doesn't want what's best for you. Your son doesn't need you as much anymore. Then comes the logistical discomfort, cancelled plans, conflicts created the very day you were going to visit someone, arguments right before a family gathering. Finally, before you even realize it, you're hardly calling your people anymore. You stop seeing your friends, and all your time revolves around him. And of course, loneliness is fertile ground for manipulation. I think of a woman I met during a talk in Mexico. She told me, Gabriel, I didn't realize it until one day my son asked me, Mom, why don't you come see me like you used to? That was her bucket of cold water. She had given up so much ground that she no longer had space of her own. That was her alarm bell. And maybe you have that same alarm ringing somewhere in your life. There's a passage in the Bible I find illuminating. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Proverbs 18:1. Here it's about voluntary isolation, but the principle still applies. When someone pushes you to sever ties, they're also stealing the counsel, the support, and the love those bonds bring. And let's not forget that for many of us, at this stage in life, true friends and close family are treasures not easily replaced. Let me share a short fable. In the square of a small town, there was a great tree that offered shade to everyone passing by. One day, a hermit arrived and settled under its branches, saying, Stay here with me, I'll protect you. But he drove away anyone who tried to approach. Over time, people stopped coming near the tree. In the end, the one who stayed under its shade lost sight of the village, the market, the roads. The tree remained strong, but their world had shrunk to a single presence. That's the trap. Do you know the antidote? Remembering that your people are your roots. You can set boundaries, you can choose who you spend time with, but never hand over control of your relationships to someone who wants to monopolize your life. If you feel it's becoming harder to see the people you love, make the conscious effort to reconnect. Call, write, reclaim those spaces, even if it causes conflict at first. And I'll close this chapter with a reminder. Justice, one of the pillars of Stoicism, is not only giving each person what's theirs, it's also recognizing and honoring those who have stood by you through good times and bad. Don't let anyone, no matter how much they say they love you, rob you of the company that sustains you. Because a relationship that locks you away is not love, it's captivity. Number 3, he makes you doubt your memory. There's a technique narcissists use that's as corrosive as it is invisible, making you believe your own mind is deceiving you. It has a well-known name in psychology, gaslighting. But beyond the technical term, what matters is how it feels, as if suddenly you couldn't trust your memories, your perceptions, or even what you just experienced. Picture it. You say, yesterday you yelled at me, and the answer is, me? Never. You're making things up. Or you mention, you said we'd go together, and you get, you're exaggerating. I never said that. And so, day after day, you end up questioning your own sanity. The most twisted part is that this game makes you dependent. Because when you stop trusting your own judgment, who do you turn to? Exactly. The very person who's manipulating you. It's like someone cutting off your wings and then offering you a cane so you don't fall. And of course, you thank them for the cane, without realizing the wound came from their hand. Let me share something that happened to me over a decade ago. I had been in a relationship where I felt like my words disappeared into a tunnel. Until one day, I decided to write down, word for word, a conversation I'd had. Weeks later, when that conversation was denied as if it had never happened, I opened my notebook. Not to argue, but for myself. That simple practice gave me back some sanity because it reminded me that my mind was intact, that what I perceived was real. That notebook became my small refuge. This is where Epictetus comes in, always insisting that the greatest power we have is guarding our judgments. The world may be full of noise, deception, and illusions, but what we think about what happens is what defines us. If you hand that guardianship over to someone else, you lose the key to your freedom. Try this. The next time you feel your memory is being questioned, write it down. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to have a solid foundation reminding you, yes, this happened, I lived it, I felt it. That simple practice can be the difference between losing yourself in confusion or keeping your path clear. And let me take this moment to invite you to something. If these reflections are helping you, if in some way they make you open your eyes or reaffirm your worth, please subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and let me know in the comments which country you're listening from. That connection isn't just a detail, it's what keeps this community of wisdom seekers alive and what encourages me to keep sharing. I want you to hold on to this image. Your memory is like your home. Others may try to move the furniture, open the windows, or even turn off the lights, but the structure is yours. No one should convince you that your home doesn't exist. And every time someone tries, remember, your mind is sacred, and protecting it is the first act of dignity. Number 4, he blames you for everything. Here we enter another master move of the narcissist, turning you into a professional scapegoat. No matter what happens, somehow it all ends up being your fault. If he gets angry, it's because you provoked him. If he lies, it's because you pushed him to it. If he cheats, it's because you didn't take good enough care of him. It's a script as worn out as it is effective because it drains you emotionally until you find yourself apologizing for things you never even did. This mechanism is called projection. He accuses you of what he actually does, but he needs to see you as guilty in order to keep his own image clean. And of course, in the middle of an argument, the tactic is so quick, you don't even have time to think. You say, "What you did hurt me," and he shoots back with, "Yeah, but you always," and shifts the focus. In the blink of an eye, the conversation is no longer about his fault, it's about yours. Have you ever felt like you went into a talk knowing exactly what you wanted to say and came out apologizing for something completely different? Let me give you an example, like a little play. You say, "It bothers me when you come home late without telling me." He replies, "Sure, but you never appreciate what I do for you." You answer, "That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you leaving me waiting." And he comes back with, "See, you're always trying to make me look bad. You never recognize anything." That's emotional checkmate. Like in chess, he corners you with what looks like a brilliant move, but in reality it's a trap. And you, just to end the fight, sacrifice your most valuable piece, your peace of mind. I remember talking with an older woman who confessed, "Gabriel, I used to apologize even for the rain, just to calm the storm at home." She said it half joking, but the truth is, she spent years carrying guilt that wasn't hers. That's the invisible price of this manipulation. They turn your peace into currency. Stoicism reminds us of the importance of temperance, keeping our balance even in the middle of provocation. It's not about winning every argument. It's about not losing yourself in the process. When you feel like everything is being dumped on your shoulders, stop and breathe before you respond. Ask yourself, is this guilt really mine, or is it a crooked mirror being held up to me? Here's a simple exercise. The next time you're accused of something, instead of answering right away, pause for 10 seconds. That pause breaks the automatic reflex to apologize. And if, after thinking it through, you see it's not yours, don't carry what doesn't belong to you. Number 5. He controls your money and your time. Now, here we're talking about a much more obvious form of control, though it often hides behind the mask of care. "I'll handle the finances because you get stressed. Better give me your card and I'll manage it. Don't spend on that. I know what you really need." Behind those phrases lies an uncomfortable truth. Control over your money and your time is control over your life. And when you give it away without noticing, you become dependent on the very person you shouldn't. I've seen it so many times. Couples who, under the excuse of order, centralize the money, decide what gets paid, what gets bought, where they go, and even who they help. And by the time you realize it, you no longer have the freedom to plan even a night out with friends, because your pocket is empty and your calendar is filled with his priorities. Manipulation doesn't always come in the form of shouting. Sometimes it shows up disguised as, "I'll organize things for you." I remember an older woman who told me through tears how, after her separation, she didn't even know how much groceries cost. For 20 years he had handled every purchase and every cent, and when he left, she had to learn from scratch how to manage on her own. It wasn't that I couldn't, she told me. It was that he convinced me I shouldn't. That's the poison. They strip you of practice and make you believe you're incapable. The same happens with time. Have you noticed how your free hours start filling up with his activities, commitments, or demands? At first, it feels natural to share, but when you realize your entire day revolves around someone else and your projects are pushed to the background, it's no longer love, it's control. And time, believe me, is worth just as much as money. Here I want to bring in Seneca, who said, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it." When you let someone manage your hours at will, you're losing life. And the worst part is, you get used to it. But Stoicism calls us back to autonomy, reminding us that every minute is a unique coin that will never return. Let me suggest a simple exercise. Set aside a minimum budget that you manage yourself, even if it's small, and block out weekly hours that are untouchable, just for you. Those spaces are like a private garden within your life. It's not about hiding, but about reclaiming your ground. Because no one should hold the keys to everything that belongs to you. Always remember this: your money and your time are extensions of your dignity. If someone has full control over them, they control your life. And love is not about handing over the wheel of your ship, it's about navigating together with respect. So ask yourself, who's steering right now? And if it's not you, you already know the first step to take to get it back. Number 6, he watches you and invades your privacy. Here we step into a territory where love turns into surveillance. And let me say it plainly. Jealousy disguised as care is not love, it's control. That habit of checking your phone, asking for your passwords to build trust, demanding pictures constantly to know where you are, installing tracking apps, or calling you insistently if you're 10 minutes late. What starts with an "I just worry about you" ends in an invisible prison where you can't breathe anymore. The trap is that it's often sold as romance. If I weren't jealous, I wouldn't love you, some say. But let me ask you this. Does love really need daily proof of innocence? Because what they're really asking for isn't trust, it's obedience. And a relationship without trust is like a house with locks on every door. You can live in it, yes, but you'll never feel free. Not long ago, I heard the story of an older woman who, as a gesture of transparency, gave her email password to her partner. Over time, he not only controlled her messages, but replied on her behalf, deleted contacts, and even made her afraid to write to her own grandchildren. "I felt like a stranger in my own life," she told me. That story stayed with me because it shows how quickly something seemingly innocent can strip away your voice. To illustrate it, I like to use the metaphor of a sentinel at the door. Imagine in your own house you had a guard checking everyone who comes in, everything that goes out, every word you speak. At first it feels like protection, but eventually you realize you're not living in your home anymore. You're living under watch. Here, Stoic philosophy reminds us of the pillar of courage. It's not about confronting with anger, but about setting firm boundaries. Courage isn't always measured in blows, but in the serenity with which you say, "This is mine. This space belongs to me." Because yes, your inner life, your messages, your thoughts, and your silences are sacred, and they are not meant to be under anyone's supervision. A practical tip: set clear rules for privacy. You don't need to justify why you want to keep your passwords to yourself, just like you don't need to explain why you close the bathroom door. Some spaces are yours, period. And if someone can't accept that, they don't understand what respect really means. I want to leave you with this thought as a mantra. Love does not require surveillance. Someone who loves you trusts you, and someone who doesn't trust you, no matter how much they watch you, will never feel at peace. Don't hand over your keys, because every time you do, you lose a piece of your freedom. And true love, believe me, should never cost you your freedom. Number 7. He compares you and triangulates. Here we arrive at one of the narcissist's cruelest and most exhausting tactics, triangulation. What does it mean? It's when he brings a third person, maybe an ex, a co-worker, even a child, into the center of the relationship to make you compete. And nothing is more draining than feeling that your worth is being tested in a ring where someone else makes the rules. Constant comparison is a slow poison. Look how well my ex cooks. I wish you were as patient as so-and-so. That person really gets me. Words that might sound like casual remarks, but are really daggers that make you doubt yourself. Little by little, you get trapped in a game where you're chasing approval that never comes. And the narcissist loves that chase because it keeps him at the center, acting as supreme judge of your value. The most twisted part is that it's not always about another woman or man. Sometimes they use children. If you leave me, they'll take my side. Or your granddaughter says I'm the only one who understands you. In this way, they plant division in your most sacred bonds, making you feel isolated even among your own family. I remember a story an older man told me. It was during a family meal, and in the middle of the conversation his partner said, "Your cousin really knows how to listen, not like you who always interrupts me." She said it with a smile, as if it were a joke, but for him it hurt more than a shout. Because triangulation often hides in lightness, in the casual remark that leaves you at a disadvantage compared to someone else. Let me share a little fable. In a village, an old shaman watched two young men fighting over a wobbly wooden throne. Each believed that if he sat on it, he would be respected. She walked over and said, "Do you really think a throne that breaks with the wind will give you power?" Real power is knowing how to stand tall without needing to sit on anything. That's the key. Don't enter the game because it's a cardboard throne. Here, Stoicism reminds us of prudence, the ability to discern which battles are worth fighting. Competing for love with third parties is a battle lost before it even begins, because the field is designed so you'll never win. The only real victory is stepping out of the game and reclaiming your worth from within. A practical tip: when you're hit with a comparison, instead of defending yourself or striking back, stay silent and observe. That silence becomes a mirror where the manipulator reflects himself. It's not passivity, it's strategy. With time, you'll see that you don't need to prove anything, because your value isn't measured in contests organized by someone who plays dirty. Love doesn't need referees or rivals. If your partner forces you to compete for his affection, he's not offering you love, but a performance in which you'll always be the loser. And you weren't born to live as a contestant. You were born to live in peace. Number 8. He doesn't feel your pain. One of the most visible and at the same time most devastating traits of a narcissist is their inability to feel real empathy. And I don't just mean not understanding your sadness. I'm talking about something crueler. Your suffering bothers them, or even annoys them, because it doesn't fit into their script. If you're sick, they see it as a burden. If you're grieving, they minimize it. If one day you're simply tired, they accuse you of exaggerating. And the most twisted part: when they need to look good in front of others, suddenly they can act like the most compassionate person in the world. But you know the difference. Because when the lights go out, the indifference comes back. I remember a woman I met in a workshop. She told us that after a serious surgery, her partner got angry because she couldn't take care of him the way she used to. Imagine that. Instead of supporting her in her fragility, he blamed her for not being available. That's the essence of narcissism. They turn your pain into a personal offense, and they do it with such confidence that you end up feeling ashamed for needing care. I experienced something similar myself in a hospital room, not with a partner, but with a family member. I spent hours sitting in a hard chair, doing nothing but being there. And in that moment, I understood that true love isn't measured in grand speeches, but in the ability to stay when everything is uncomfortable, when there's nothing to gain. That experience taught me to distinguish between cardboard empathy and authentic compassion. There's a verse in the Bible that has always stayed with me on this topic. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Romans 12:15. It sounds so simple, yet it holds the essence of empathy. To be present in another's pain doesn't require magic solutions, only a willing heart. And when someone can't or won't do that, what you have before you isn't love, it's utilitarianism in disguise. Stoicism also reminds us that life is made of trials, and a healthy relationship should be a space where both can hold each other up when the storm comes. The absence of that reciprocity is a red flag, because there's no dignity in begging for care, just as there's no love in ignoring another's suffering. Here's a practical guideline. Think back on your most recent difficult moments. Was that person truly there for you, or only when the scene allowed them to look good? If you realize your pain doesn't fit into their narrative, what you have isn't a partner, it's a selfish spectator. Let me close with this image. True love is an uncomfortable chair in a waiting room, not a stage for the perfect photo. If someone can't sit with you in your fragility, they don't deserve to share in your victories. Because the one who ignores your pain will, sooner or later, end up ignoring your life as well. Number 9, he promises a future that never comes. Here we reach one of the most frustrating traps: empty promises. The narcissist is often a master of words, someone who knows how to build castles in the air with phrases like, "Once this phase is over, we'll travel. I'm about to change. After this, we'll go to therapy. I promise soon it'll be different." And of course, while you listen to those plans, your heart fills with hope. But then a month passes, then a year, and you realize the only thing that changed was your patience. This pattern has a name: future faking. It's like being sold tickets for a trip that never takes off. The terrible part is that those promises work like anesthesia. They ease the pain in the moment, make you postpone decisions, and keep alive the illusion that if you just hold on a little longer, everything will be resolved. But what really gets resolved is his comfort, because he manages to keep you waiting forever. I recall a story someone shared at a retreat. An older man spoke about how his partner had been promising for decades that one day they would move to a quieter house. He believed it so much that he even collected home decor magazines. But that day never came, because the promise was never a plan. It was just a tool of control. When he finally understood, he said a phrase that stayed with me: "I did move, but into the life I had denied myself by waiting." To illustrate it, let me tell you a short tale. There was a craftsman who drew bridges on paper with such beauty that everyone was amazed. "Look, soon we'll cross to the other side," he would say. People applauded, but there was never wood, never nails, never real work. The bridges were just drawings, beautiful but useless. That's what the narcissist's promises are: masterpieces of imagination, but impossible to live in. Here, Stoicism offers a powerful antidote: prudence. It's about watching not what someone says, but what they do. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that words should follow actions. And when there are no actions, only speeches, what you have isn't commitment, it's smoke. Here's a simple method to test whether a promise is real. Give it a date, a concrete action, and a consequence. "We'll go to therapy" becomes, "Tuesday at 6, we have an appointment with this therapist." If there's no concreteness, the rest is theater. I want to close this chapter by bringing together the 4 Stoic pillars. Prudence, to see clearly when words don't turn into deeds. Justice, to recognize you deserve a love that fulfills, not one that entertains. Courage, to take the step of leaving the endless waiting behind. And temperance, to avoid falling again into the cycle of false promises. We've walked together through 9 signs that are not small details, but blazing alarms. The intermittent affection that confuses your heart, the isolation that cuts you off from your people, the doubts planted in your memory, the guilt you carried without reason, the control over your money and your time, the surveillance disguised as love, the comparisons that wound, the coldness toward your pain, and the promises that never come true. Each of these marks reveals a hard truth. When someone needs to dominate you to feel strong, they are not offering love. They are stealing your dignity. And if there's one thing I want you to keep from this talk, it's that your life is not negotiable. You can choose, even now, even after many years, to reclaim the calm, the self-love, and the respect you deserve. Stoicism taught me that freedom begins with the judgment you make about what you live. You don't need to wait for them to change for you to be okay. You need to decide that your peace is no longer conditional. Because as Seneca said, no wind is favorable to the one who doesn't know to which port they are sailing. And your port, believe me, should be serenity, not the storm. I want to thank you deeply for making it this far, for taking the time to listen and reflect. You are an essential part of this community, the Stoic Garden, a space created so you can regain your strength, your serenity, and your purpose, no matter your age. Now I ask you for something special. Write in the comments which country you're connecting from, so I'll know how far this wonderful network of truth seekers extends. And also, I want you to leave this powerful phrase in the comments to seal what we've learned today. My peace is not negotiable. I also invite you to share this video with a friend, a sister, with someone who may be trapped in a relationship that drains their energy. You never know when these words might become the breath of air someone desperately needs. Thank you from the heart for walking with me on this journey, for your courage, and for your commitment to your own well-being. Now on the screen, you'll see 2 videos that will surely interest you. Choose the one that resonates most with you, and continue this path of learning, reflection, and practical wisdom. Because remember, every step you take toward your dignity is a step toward your true freedom.